Welcome to Withum's 2021-2022 Global Summit. This year, we have a podcast series with Withum's international team members discussing doing business in regions around the world with our HLB member firms, our clients, and our colleagues. Listen in for discussions to hear how they transact business in multiple countries, to learn about changes in their home country environments, as well as about the culture, cuisine, and must-see sites in each region. Welcome and thank you for joining us today in our podcast discussion around doing business in the Netherlands. My name is Chaya Siegfried. I'm a partner in Withum's International Tax Group, and with me today our guests are Jesse Campanaro, CEO of Total Gym Commercial and Managing Director of Total Gym BV, as well as Jason Marianthanum, who's a tax advisor based in Amsterdam and advises companies expanding into the Netherlands. So thank you both for joining us. And if we could just start with getting a little bit of background about what you do. Jesse, if you can tell us a little bit about the background of your company, what your business looks like in the US and in the Netherlands and just generally worldwide.
So Total Gym is a fitness equipment company that's been around since 1974. We design and develop all of our own proprietary exercise equipment, and we sell in over 49 countries. We have several divisions in the U.S., consumer division being our largest, commercial division being our most up and coming, and our rehab and medical division being our longest and most stable heritage part of our business. We expanded into Europe through the Netherlands with Jason's help in 2013 as we continued to expand across a global network of sales partners and sales channels into the 49 countries we currently sell into.
Great. And Jason, tell us a little bit about your practice.
Sure. Thanks, Kaya. My practice generally around is an international advisory. So what we do is we help international companies expand abroad. We guide them through quite complex tax and regulatory matters, so we can make complex things quite simple. The focus in my line of work is helping mainly international businesses enter into the European Union, and that's a practice on its own.
Great. So what type of businesses, Jason, do you see coming into the Netherlands? Is it a specific industry, a specific service line? What's the common company footprint that you're working with?
Yeah, so they come in all shapes and sizes. The last 2 years, we've seen more retail businesses coming to the Netherlands. One, because of the high spending power, and it's also we'll speak a little bit about this later, about its strategic location. So distribution is made a bit more easier. We also see companies that are looking for a very specific talent pool, such as engineers, data scientists, and also a concentration of biotech companies. We also see quite a number of biotech companies setting up shop here as well. But retail is by far a big driver.
That's interesting. So like retail shops, they're being headquartered out of the Netherlands, or just flag stores or branches?
Yeah, so generally what we see is the brick and mortar stores are going out, and they're setting up shared service centers where they're able to deploy a full team of commercial people, salespeople, and drive business through the internet. So we're really seeing internet companies being set up.
Interesting. Wow. So Jason, why the Netherlands? What brought Total Gym to the Netherlands?
So as a product company, we design and develop our own products, and we manufacture them in third-party factories, primarily in Asia. And when looking at entering the European Union, we really looked for the most favorable environment to bring product in by container. So the Netherlands stood out above all other options, primarily because of their favorable tax treaties and taxability. And Jason could speak more to that because I learned everything I know about it from him anyways. And that is the ability to defer our VAT, which is a significant savings if you're bringing product into the country, and you can defer that VAT rather than having that cash sit on the sidelines until you get it refunded. There's also abilities to defer the duties, and there's very good warehousing solutions and great partners like Jason financially that can help us check all the boxes that the government needs us to check to do business in the right way in not just the European Union, but also in the Netherlands. Not to mention that Rotterdam is the largest port of entry in Europe. So the cost of bringing containers in from Asia to Rotterdam is less than other ports, and the warehousing solutions there are very robust. So we've got great warehousing partners. We've got efficient freight transit into the country and the EU. And we've got the ability to defer our VAT and tax burdens so that we can keep that cash working for us and working for the business.
So it's kind of your entryway into Europe.
Yes, correct.
Jason, is that what you see with most of your clients? Why do they choose the Netherlands as a country to expand into?
Yeah. I think Jesse said most of the important reasons on why companies enter the Netherlands to expand to Europe. Tax rates are definitely competitive now with the UK leaving, and they found a way. This Dutch government's found a way to maintain a really good corporate income tax rate. We also see some of the more practical things apart from taxes. English is spoken very widely in this country. And you can communicate easily with the tax authorities. You can get on the phone with them. They're not too far away. You can even go and talk to them and visit them and ask for help and advice on what to do. The ruling team is also easily accessible. A place close by where I live is called Schiphol Airport, and Schiphol Airport, apart from Heathrow, has one of the largest connection networks in all of Europe. So you could pretty much fly in the morning, do business, and then by evening you can fly back out.
Great. So it sounds like a good way to expand into Europe. It's a good door through which to enter.
Well, and Jason, you mentioned a really good thing that I sort of overlooked, and that is the English spoken in the Netherlands is very good. I can call anyone at our bank in the Netherlands and in 2 words ask them if they speak English, and it's always yes, and it's always good, and you can always understand them. And I guess I sort of took that for granted over the last few years, but that's not the case in every country that you look at expanding into. So that's a big point. And then the other point is, if you are going to expand internationally, you're going to need to go visit that place. So the airport is key, but also the Netherlands is a beautiful country. I mean, it's such a great place to be that if I'm going to go visit our warehouse or our partners somewhere in Europe, I love going to the Netherlands. It's great parks, great family activities, great museums, great canals, great people. So those things are sometimes things we overlook in business, but they mean a lot when you're going to be spending a lot of time or having activities in a certain country.
Yeah, makes it more pleasant. Jason, what's the general tax environment compared to some of the other European countries in terms of corporate tax rate, VAT? Aside from the being easier to deal with it's easier to deal with the tax authorities, but what's the actual? Is there a big difference between the corporate tax rate in the Netherlands versus, say, Germany, France, one of the other neighboring countries?
All right, so the tax legislation is quite easy to understand. You've got some standard filings that need to happen throughout the year, some on a quarterly basis, some on a yearly basis. In terms of the specifics, from a VAT perspective, it's 21%. That's usually borne by the end consumer. So business has very little to do with that because it's an input-output thing. And when it comes to corporate income tax, the first $395,000 is subject to 15%. And the excess of that is on a 25% rate. But most companies are looking at about an effective rate around 15 to 17%. Yeah, so that's on the tax matter. I mean, throughout the whole OECD movement, you will see certain kinds of businesses are being subject to have more substance in the country. And to not misuse the beautiful tax treaties that we have. if you're looking to make use of the tax treaty network, there is a level of substance that you need to have in this country.
So you have that limitation of benefits concept where you have to have the substance there. And I think we're kind of seeing that across the board, that theme in every country. So that's not unusual. So any specific challenges, Jesse, that you faced expanding into the Netherlands? Anything that surprised you? Anything, having done it that you wish you may have known in advance, or that words of caution to another business that might be considering a similar move?
I don't know if it's words of caution or any surprises necessarily, but something that everyone should consider is there's really two different ways that you can do it. And Jason could speak a little bit more to this, but if you're a U.S. entity and you can still expand into the Netherlands without actually setting up a Dutch BV through the use of a fiscal representation and a third-party warehouse. And that can be an effective way to get started at a low cost. We did start that way, actually, and then swiftly moved into setting up our own Dutch BV, Total Gym Europe BV, which then gives you all of the components of having a business in the EU and in the Netherlands. And so as you expand, that can be a little more costly, but it also has a lot of benefits to it as well. So we started with the fiscal representation route, which again, Jason could explain more because I don't want to misrepresent anything. And we expanded to actually having a subsidiary of our US LLC, a wholly owned subsidiary called Total Gym Europe BV, to really garnish all of the resources and, I'm trying to think of the best word, but all of the things that are available to us as a Dutch entity, right, or as a European entity. Everything from banking solutions to deferring the VAT to really all of those opportunities. And let's not minimize the ability to defer VAT. While yes, it is the customer's responsibility ultimately. If you look at bringing $1 million of product in, you'd have $210,000 of float in the system. Well, that float is real cash out of your pocket unless you defer it. If you're able to defer it, that's real cash in your pocket that you can use to fund the business, grow the business, acquire more product. And I believe it's still the case today, but the Netherlands is the only country that offers that ability. At least when we set up, they were the only one, and that was pivotal to our decision so that we could keep our cash working for us as we expand into Europe.
So I guess that's one of the big selling points you were talking about earlier. Both of you were talking about in terms of selecting the Netherlands versus another country within the European Union. So that's those are big dollars that you'd have locked up in your VAT piece.
Yeah, there's some other countries that may be equivalent in some of the benefits like warehousing and an inbound port and everything, but none of them allow you to defer your VAT. So when you're looking at expanding into Europe, why wouldn't you want to retain 21% of your capital to be able to use that for that expansion versus having that sit on the sidelines until it gets reimbursed?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially we know when companies are expanding globally, there are lots of demands on the capital. So to have to lock that up in a VAT system or having the option of not is definitely could be a game changer. So, but going back to your point about using like a fiscal representative, I think you had said, Jesse, I'm going to just ask Jason. So can you clarify like when it makes sense for someone to consider the fiscal representation, if I'm using the right terminology, versus actually forming an entity?
No, you are using the right terminology. Fiscal representation is a solution where you're not required to set up a legal entity, but you have to appoint a representative for you to be able to take charge of your tax representation in the country. And there is a link there where there's a bank guarantee that needs to be put in place, and the bank guarantee has to go to the tax authorities. So there is a little bit of work, but it's far less complex than setting up a legal entity. Although, that being said, the last 2 years, there's been a big pivot in the EU where new directives have been issued for various categories of products. MDR is by far the most complex one, and if you are subject to MDR, I would already immediately say go for a Dutch BV, because it gives you a level of protection from a legal standpoint. Total Gym thankfully already had a BV set up, and it was an easy pivot to use the BV as the representative. But there are other directives out there that you have to be very careful of. And by setting up a BV, and a BV is an equivalent to a private limited company, it gives you this, again, the level of legal protection in case of a claim put against the company, that you can always limit it to the Netherlands or to that company. Also, I think Jesse mentioned as well that trading in Europe, at least from a banking perspective, may require you to have a Dutch legal entity. We see that certain banks might be a bit hesitant to issue a bank account for a foreign company. So that's another reason why you'd like to set up a Dutch entity to collect cash. And also in the currency that you're comfortable with, in euros, for instance. So if you're trading with European customers, they generally like to pay in euros. Some of them will pay in dollars, but most of them are paying in euros. So this could be, and if your current bank doesn't offer that, then you definitely want to make sure you have a Dutch legal entity, so you can do a natural hedge to have all of your cost and revenues in one currency.
So how easy or difficult is it to form a company in the Netherlands?
Yeah, so in principle, it should take a couple of days, 2 to 3 days, and you can have a company set up. We used to have in the past a minimum share capital of 18,000 gulden at that time. Now they became euros, but now it's just one euro, and that should.
So there's no minimum capital required.
Well, it's one
euro.
Euro, yeah. The setting up of the company is not so difficult. There is certain things that needs to be arranged, such as identifying who the owners of the business are, and the normal AMLI stuff that most companies are already very accustomed to. And then there comes the bank account, and that can take a little bit of time. But thankfully, with if you don't want to go with the big banks, and you just like a trading facility, then fintech can offer a lot of solutions in that respect.
Okay, so the actual legal entity you can set up, but then everything else that needs to fall in place, that might take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Well, from my experience, it was very similar to setting up an entity in the U.S. You could almost say the same as setting up an LLC in the U.S. to set up a Dutch BV, right? Some paperwork, some owner levels, some requirements, but all easy things that Jason seamlessly guided us through. One of our critical reasons from moving from fiscal representation to having the Dutch BV was the bank account. I believe we were not able to have a European bank account, and I've found that U.S. multi-currency U.S. bank accounts with euro and U.S. dollars seem to be much more complicated than our Dutch bank account with euros and dollars. So that was a nice ability for us to provide a way to have customers pay. And in some cases, even customers outside the EU, like in the Middle East or whatever, have an easier time paying our Dutch bank account than even our US bank account. So it's been a really nice transition as we've expanded globally to offer a couple of different ways for customers to pay. As most international businesses know, the easier we can allow our customers to pay, the faster we get their money. So having those multiple resources and channels for them to pay into as a small expanding business is really important.
Okay, so what other cultural differences would you this question, Jesse, is for you in terms of comparing doing business in the US, and I know you have operations outside of the US. I think you might have mentioned Germany at one point. So culturally, or it doesn't even have to be culture, but just ease of doing business, how does it compare to the US or elsewhere versus the Netherlands?
I would say the Netherlands is very similar to the US, more so than Germany, for example. Doing business in Germany can be very rigid, very matter of fact, very straightforward, but also very, very, very rigid, right? Whereas I've found doing business in the Netherlands and working with the Dutch people, they're much more open, they're much more free of thought, free of mind. Willing to look at things in a different way and do things a different way, whereas other cultures are not, right? So that makes it a great hub. It makes it a great expansion place to get into Europe and then start dealing with the nuances of all the various cultures as you expand into different countries. So I would say that it is always great to have a local partner in each country. Every country we expand into, we do it with a local distributor and a local partner that can manage the specific needs of that country. But having that all sort of come back to that central hub of Total Gym Europe in the Netherlands is a great sort of, it's almost like Switzerland. I don't want to say exactly, but they're very neutral, right? Most everybody like the Dutch, most everybody like doing business with them from what I've experienced. And my experience is still limited, but for the most part, people are very like, oh yeah, it's a very liked area. It's a very liked place and people like doing business with them. So it's a nice transition.
Jason, do you agree? I mean, do people complain to you that it's hard to do business with the Dutch?
Well, they're very tall people, so sometimes if you're
no one start up with them
vertically, then you might have a bit of a stiff neck at the end of the day having to talk to a lot of people. But apart from that, no, it's not a country that likes hierarchy very much. We don't tend to use the sir, professor, and a lot of all these terms. We keep it quite easy, and everyone's whether you're the CEO of a company or you're right down the lines, everyone is pretty much equal here. You can easily walk into anybody's room or office and have a quick chat. Easily accessible, and that comes with I think going many years ago from the VOC ships that left these shores, going to different parts of the world. When you're a trader and you go to explore, you have to be versatile, you have to be flexible, and I think that they brought that culture back to this country.
Nice. So for people visiting to set up businesses in the Netherlands, what Dutch cuisine would you recommend that they try? What can you get there that you can't get anywhere else in the world is good?
Look, this country was founded by farmers, and there's a big. If you come and visit our country, you will see that also we have a thing with water. In fact, half the country is underwater, and you'll see some very interesting sights when you come here. For instance, you'll be riding your bicycle here, lower, and you guys obviously can't see me. And a ship or a boat will be above you, for instance. And that's kind of unique to see. But coming back to farmers, yeah, it's founded by farmers, and most farmers like potatoes. And so you'll find quite a number of potato dishes in the Netherlands. If you come, look up a dish called stampot, and that's basically potatoes, vegetables, meat mashed together. And it does. I'm not selling it very well, but on a good cold night, it's a good dish to have.
I was going to ask if you're telling us we should avoid it or we should try it. It wasn't clear.
Try it once and then avoid it.
There you go. And then you touched upon attractions, and I know, Jesse, you mentioned earlier the parks, but anything else specific or just generally you want to expand on visiting while we're over there?
The parks and the canals and just the general environment's really cool, but there's also some of the best museums in the world in the Netherlands and in Amsterdam. There's the Anne Frank Museum, there's the Heineken Beer Factory, which is a good visit if you go there.
I like how you call that a museum.
That is a museum. It is a museum. It's I was blending attractions and museums. What's the other museum there? There's a really famous one, the Van Gogh. right?
Museum, the Rijksmuseum and the Van Gogh Museum.
Yep, and the Van
Or
Gogh
how
Museum.
you pronounce it, Van Gogh Museum.
Van Gogh, yes.
A lot of spit.
I didn't know
Yep.
that's how they pronounce Van Gogh in
Van Gogh.
interesting. Anything else, Jason, you want to add on that?
No, yeah. One of the most beautiful sights is taking a canal ride at nighttime. Don't do it during the day; it's filled with tourists. But if you go at night and all the lights are on, you can have a really nice canal cruise.
Nice. And I think you said something when we spoke recently about the tulips. Tell us
That's
about
right.
the tulip season.
Yeah. So March, April is tulip season, and tulips are very unique to the Netherlands. You see all kinds of colors. The Netherlands has one of the largest flower auction houses. In fact, millions of flowers are traded every day, every morning. And you might have heard of the Dutch auction. So a typical auction is the price goes up. In the Dutch auction, the price goes down. So it starts at the highest price, and then you have to
Bid.
put a bid exactly, and then you if you bid too early, then you might be paying a high price. If you bid too late, then somebody else would have got it.
Interesting. Wow, is that open to tourists, the flower auction?
Every morning, you can go to a beautiful place called Aalsmeer and watch how the auctions are done and how the trading is done for all the flowers. Some of the innovation in the Dutch flower industry is that they've taken flowers that we have here, like for instance roses, and then they've bought land in Africa, and they're growing parts of the flower in Africa and growing the rest of the Netherlands, and it's all so timed so perfectly. It's really interesting to see.
Wow, that's interesting. So just rounding up the conversation, Jesse, I'm curious, where do you see the future of physical fitness? You know, speaking very specifically about your industry, since we have you here, where do you see the future of physical fitness, like both in the US and worldwide? Where's that business going?
Well, I think we've just we all know that we just came through a major global pandemic that has to do with people's health. So I think the general mindset right now among the world is that we need to be healthier people. With that comes a number of things, physical fitness being included. And obviously we've seen an uprising of consumer fitness products with connected solutions to give people a digital ecosystem to engage with while they train, versus it being always about people or in person. I believe that it's gonna swing back towards health clubs and facilities again a little bit more, because people want that. They want that personal interaction. They need that accountability. But I think there's always going to be a place for digital fitness and integration. And where I'm leading Total Gym in this path, and we do business in all of the various markets: consumer, commercial, and rehabilitation and medical. So I see us really being the connected wellness solution of all of it. People are thinking less about vanity now and thinking more about longevity and life, right? They don't want to get sick. They want to stay healthy. That you can do that with whatever pant size at the end of the day, right? So it's less about vanity and more about health. And I think that trend will continue. And I think personally, and I'm a bit biased because of Total Gym, but I believe that Total Gym is in a prime position to lead that connected wellness charge and see how we can do a better job of connecting our commercial customers and our rehab customers and our consumer customers with the right professionals or the right technology or the right programs or programming to help them accomplish their wellness goals, right? Whether it be longevity, weight loss, healthiness, strength, all of the above. That's where I think people's mindsets are going and where the industry is going to go in the next couple of years.
Great, helping people live more healthy lives. It's wonderful. Well, thank you both for your time. It's been a great conversation. I learned a lot about, the Netherlands, doing business there and other things like flowers. So Thanks for your time and your expertise.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Kaya. Thanks, Jess.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed your virtual trip to another region as much as I did. Please join us again as we continue to roam the world.